will make America strong again.
Whoops, that was wrong. Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. Great to see you all out there for another installment of Taking It Back with my good buddies Frankie Val of the Quite Frankly Show, Zach Payne of RedPill78News.com. What's up, guys?
Hello.
How are we doing this week?
Doing well. I'm doing all right. I mean, the Aurora has a slight fever and a clogged up nose, but other than that, I'm just hoping I don't get it, and everything else is just what it is.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't spread, and hopefully she feels better. She feels better soon, bud.
Oh yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Are you? Okay, yeah, Zach, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I was just admiring Frank's shirt before the show, and I gotta say it's a perfect message, a total classic. And
it is a classic.
Show it off. You got to show it off.
Hold on, stay there, Frank. I wanna pin your your video. So everyone, there you go.
If you're wondering where you can get it, you can't even get it at a consignment shop right now. It's so old. We're talking decades, but I'm trying to. We'll figure it out. That's what I can do. Anyway, let me ask you guys something. To start this one off.
Okay.
I was reading a little bit about the Mark Meadows thing. How much of this has been confirmed that he was wearing a wire for the FBI while he was? How much of that is real?
I mean, none of it's confirmed. Well, okay, so Ryan Fournier is the only person reporting on it, but he claims to have spoken with former members of Congress, current members of Congress, members of the media, and that's really where it stands at this point. I mean, it's a bold claim to make. And, I mean, I don't remember Ryan, making baseless claims. Like, there are definitely people out there in the conservative sphere who will just state something as fact, and then there's never anything to specifically back it up. But this is the kind of claim that is going to require sauce because, he said it's going to be bigger than Watergate. I mean, if obviously the FBI doesn't have a real good track record with, honesty, integrity, and reliability. So this is something that's going to have to be followed up on.
Well, yeah, not only that, but I mean, this is something that would have to be disclosed along the way, where if there was any intelligence that was gathered that was going to be turned into something that was actionable against Donald Trump in the future, then you're going to have to say how the intelligence was gathered, and there's no way to justify that kind of a snoop job. No way in hell.
I would say not necessarily. Take a look at the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover. They had a long history of surreptitiously recording and blackmailing people. So who's to say that they were looking for something they could necessarily use that would be criminal? Perhaps they were just looking for leverage, or perhaps they were looking for clues on where to go to get a legitimate warrant to spy or to look into an existing situation. But at the end of the day, I think that if the FBI was to have discovered something while using Mark Meadows as a confidential human source, and they needed it as a Hail Mary, they would have no problem finding some way to try to legitimize it. Democracy was hanging in the balance. We had to do it. I mean, look at how much spying they've done on Trump and everybody in his corner since the very beginning. I mean, I put nothing past them.
Yeah. Here's a statement from Donald Trump on it. He says, "I don't think Mark Meadows would lie about the rigged and stolen 2020 presidential election merely for getting immunity against persecution by deranged prosecutor Jack Smith. But when you really think about it, after being hounded like a dog for 3 years, told you're going to jail for the rest of your life, your money and your family will be forever gone. And we're not at all interested in exposing those that did the rigging. If you say bad things about that terrible monster, Donald J. Trump, we won't put you in prison. You can keep your family and your wealth. And perhaps if you make some stuff up, make up some really horrible stuff about him, we may very well erect a statue of you in the middle of our decaying and now very violent capital, Washington, D.C. Some people would make that deal, but they are weaklings and cowards and so bad for the future of our failing nation. I don't think that Mark Meadows is one of them, but who really knows? Make America great again. But who really knows? He puts that little shred of doubt in there that I don't think he would, that would surprise me, but I guess it's not impossible.
Right.
I mean, normally, like if he's sure about something, you just get like it's fake news, totally false. They're liars, they're cheaters. But it's a slightly different tone he kind of took with that in that Truth Social post. So I don't know if that's just his writing style or if we should be reading into that further.
I don't know. Well, it goes back to what Zach said. This is going to require undeniable sauciness.
Yeah.
So, I guess it's just one of those, put it on the back burner, let it simmer, because we're not going to have to do any of the digging on this one. It's going to have to be revealed one way or another, or if it goes away, then we know it was crap.
What's your gut feeling on it, guys? Because I remember I can't remember if it was Patrick Byrne or somebody else like that was meeting with Donald Trump in the White House, towards the end of the Stop the Steal between November 3rd and January 6th. And I remember one of them saying something like I think it was Sidney Powell that was saying Mark Meadows wouldn't allow her into the White House or into the meeting room or something like that. Do you guys recall?
I remember that. Yeah.
So I mean,
Meadows, he was a gatekeeper,
Yeah.
So, I believe that it's totally plausible that he would take an immunity deal to just make this go away. As far as I know, Mark Meadows is not a multimillionaire. And in order to defend himself against these charges in Georgia, or if they're giving him charges in DC, it's going to require him to expend everything he's got and probably leverage his children's or his grandchildren's future as well. So you look at, Jenna Ellis and Sidney Powell, Kenneth Chesborough, whoever that bail bondsman guy was, they're all in the same boat. Like their innocence only extends so far. And at a certain point, if you've ever been involved in the criminal justice system, then you probably know prosecutors will overzealously charge you with as much as they can possibly get away with so that they can scare you into taking a plea deal, because all they really care about is that guilty verdict. They care about another check mark in that column. And that keeps their record high. They have a high success rate. That's how they get paid. That's how they get bonuses, probably. I'm sure they have quotas on the number of people that they're supposed to be forcing into a guilty plea. And so they use what tools they have at their disposal. So, I mean, I don't have money to defend myself if I was in a position like that.
I know.
It's like, go to prison or agree that they attended a meeting with electors talking about the election. I mean, that's a benign crime. The idea that they would be charged with a crime for doing something like that is ridiculous. And what are they going to testify to? I saw Donald Trump tweet about a show on OAN, the horror, like he didn't do anything illegal. And Mark Meadows, he already wrote a book talking about being there during the investigations into what happened in the 2020 election. He already stated publicly, I think he wrote like 300 pages about how, he and President Trump and everybody were working to try to get the election cleared up. So, so he says, okay, I lied about that. He's already discredited. Doesn't matter what he says.
Yeah. What it comes down to for me is everywhere you turn in this farce is really just another revival of, it's clearly a First Amendment issue. They have made the opinion, the assertion that something was not right about the election, and any way to go and challenge it legally through investigative pursuits or whatever the hell it is. I mean, how many investigations have they launched on nothing but hunches and political vendettas alone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, no evidence whatsoever, just hunches and political vendettas alone. And at every turn, you have people who are apologizing for at least at one point being strong enough to say, yes, this needs to be challenged, and we have to get to the bottom of this. And that's been made a crime. There's nothing else there where we don't have anybody, being brought up on charges for, being the, it wasn't like Mark, like I would imagine at this point, if we're going to get any, they so-and-so flipped. Flipped on what? What did they give? What the hell happened? Was Mark Meadows the one who put together the pipe bomb on January 6th? I mean, like what the hell are we ever talking about here? We're talking about matters of, at the very least, differences of opinion.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
think-
incredible.
I have no love for Jenna Ellis. I mean, she raised $250,000 for her defense. I'm most interested to know if she's going to give that money back to the people that, she was able to have it donated from. But yeah, I see a lot of people angry that anybody is pleading guilty to anything. They're pleading guilty to misdemeanors. They're writing a letter saying, "I'm sorry, Fannie Willis," and they're going to be on probation. Nobody has implicated President Trump in any crimes. That's the point at which I would consider someone to have flipped. If they go into a courtroom and say, "I saw Donald Trump commit felony A, B, or C on this date," and if they do that to save their own skin, then I have absolutely no respect for them.
Well, that's essentially what Michael Cohen's been doing for years now.
I have definitely no love lost for Michael Cohen. He, in the same way as whatever Mark Meadows is going to say, and we don't know yet, but Michael Cohen is a totally unreliable narrator. He had a personal grudge against President Trump for not giving him a pardon. He actually committed crimes. He was involved in like a scheme in New York City to, I don't know, siphon off taxi cab medallions.
Yeah,
I mean,
taxi medallions.
Yeah. That had nothing to do with President Trump. And so for him, Michael Cohen, a dishonest lawyer who should know better, to think that just because he's got proximity to President Trump, he can do whatever the hell he wants. No, I'm sorry. Serve your time. You did it. Now run along with your tail tucked between your legs. But he's vengeful, okay? And he is angry that President Trump refused to give him the same type of loyalty that allegedly he gave to President Trump undyingly. And so he has made it his public mission to try to take down President Trump. Now, he testified, but he testified to nothing, in the same way that I don't think any of these other people are going to have anything that they're going to be able to testify to. What is it? They asked him if President Trump ever asked him to commit a crime or to inflate his assets. And he said, no. Well, case closed. Thanks a lot, Michael Cohen. Appreciate you playing. Go home, write another book.
Right. And even with that, again, and I know the point has been made by other people too, but this is just, once you're in the adult world, and you have any kind of aspiration of opening up a business, especially if it has a brick and mortar location, anything like that, it doesn't even matter what you go and tell your skeevy little, going to record you under the desk lawyer to go and falsely valuate your property or a property you want to acquire. It doesn't even matter what you tell them to go and slap a value onto a piece of property or of any kind, because that is going to be thoroughly investigated by the lending institutions that you're going to go and ask for loans or whatever the hell you're going to finance this through. I mean, that's the real thing. There's secondary rounds of very thorough investigations that either have to be sorted out right there, denied or approved. Where the hell is that? Where I'm trying to still find an injured party in any of this stuff.
Well, there isn't.
It's just,
you won't find it.
Yeah. So as far as like Jenna Ellis and Sidney Powell go, and I want to run this by you before we take care of our first sponsor here. But as far as they go, I mean, they're originally being charged in a RICO conspiracy to overthrow the United States government, and they're getting deals that are misdemeanors with no jail time, right? So obviously, like they're being overcharged, like you said, Zach. How much of what they're doing is simply for media narrative by getting a few of these people with, perceived to be in Trump's inner circle or actually in his inner circle to plead guilty in these related charges. It gives them something to talk about. It adds credibility to the witch hunt that they've been putting out, and just kind of continues to fuel that nonsense that they feed the people through MSNBC and CNN and all of the three-letter networks.
Yeah, personally, I think it's a huge aspect of it, because there is no crime that's been committed There is nothing. They've been screaming from the rooftops for years that Donald Trump is dirty. We're going to get Donald Trump. And so now what have they done? They've overcharged people close to him. They've forced them to plead guilty to something nowhere near what they actually charged them with. And now they're going to be able to use that, hold that up in court and say, look at this. All of these close associates of Donald Trump have pled guilty. Well, they're just going to leave off what it was they pled guilty to. And they're not causing them, when they write these letters of apology, to specifically cop to any of these larger charges that they've given them. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, I committed a racketeering offense, but by the grace of her goddess, Fannie Willis, I am willing to plead guilty to this misdemeanor so that I can avoid the embarrassment of a long and drawn out trial. They're not doing anything like that. It's just a forced and fake mea culpa. And yes, so that they can use it as an example of, we finally got him.
Yeah, the walls are closing in for sure this time. All right, let's take care of the first couple sponsors here today. We have No Bugs Beef up first. So you mean they're putting mRNA in our food supply? What's next? Well, we've got a solution. We've partnered with the folks at No Bugs Beef, a veteran-owned all-American beef supplier that provides sous vide, freeze-dried beef from ranches in Texas that have never even heard of mRNA. That means you get high-quality cooked and freeze-dried beef cubes shipped right to your door. Premium cuts of ribeye, New York strip, tenderloin, sirloin, and chuck, not your typical survival food. Soak the beef cubes in water for just 15 minutes, and you can eat them today or in 10 years. Sous vide, freeze-dried, high-quality beef stored in Mylar bags that keep them shelf-stable for over a decade without refrigeration. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/no bugs and use promo code BADLANDS for an additional 10% off your order. That's badlandsmedia.tv/no bugs, promo code BADLANDS, badlandsmedia.tv/no bugs. Fighting the push for crickets, lab-grown meat, and every abomination under the sun. Also, we have our a new sponsor for this show, Conscious Strength. Are you bored of your morning brew? Want to get your coffee from a brand that isn't woke? Try Myco coffee from Conscious Strength. This Arabica coffee is powered with extracts of 7 different medicinal mushrooms. It mixes instantly, tastes great, and will help support your immune system, brain health, and give you no crash energy. It's certified organic and mixed right here in the USA. $1 per serving of this versus $4 for your Starbucks Dirty Mermaid coffee. The choice is yours. Available in decaf and bulk sizes. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/Myco, MYCO, and make sure you use promo code BADLANDS to support this channel and get 5% off your order. One more time, that's badlandsmedia.tv/Myco, MYCO, and then promo code BADLANDS for 5% off your order. So big thank you to the sponsors today. Also, shout out to the fam over on Badlands Media. Thank you so much for syndicating the broadcast. Wherever you're watching, hit that thumbs up button, share the link, hit the red pill button if you're on pill.net. And yeah, again, appreciate everyone's viewership and support out there today.
Absolutely. Right. Go get yourself some big coffee gulps. Hey, let me ask you, out of all those steak cuts that you listed before, Adal, where do you guys go? What do you prefer? Can you read those cuts again?
Yeah, sure. Give me 1 second. So they have ribeye, New York strip, tenderloin, sirloin, and chuck.
Okay, Zach, what do you take in first?
Oh, ribeye.
Okay,
100% every time. Okay. Bone in. Yes. Tomahawk, right. Baby.
What about you? The same thing?
I love a good ribeye. I also love a good tenderloin, a good fillet. But ribeye, I think, is the most flavorful cut of beef.
Oh, it's the best, especially if you get it's just the best. Yeah. And you know what? I don't have a lot of experience grilling anything else because I've just been so, fine focused on ribeye. But I don't know. That's it.
There's something about the way a fillet just kind of melts away in your mouth that I really love, like the texture of a fillet, but the flavor of a ribeye can't be matched.
They can't.
So like grilling at home for myself, ribeyes. If I go to a good steak restaurant, then I'm getting a filet because somebody else has prepared it, and I know it's going to be perfect. Like I don't want to take the chance that I'm going to
Pressure's on.
I'll take
Yeah.
I'll take a fillet. I'll take a fillet at like at a wedding or something, but the fat content in the ribeye is too valuable, and the fillet is just too lean.
Yeah.
It's just too lean for me. Oh, but it is.
Well,
I mean, if it melts, it's still a beautiful experience. But as far as nutritionally goes, oh man, you need that good marbleization there.
well, I always add a healthy pat of butter to my fillets. I find that that does the trick.
Yeah, you got to crack a few cloves of garlic, baste it in
Yeah.
butter, a fresh thing of thyme or rosemary in there. Yeah, it makes absolutely phenomenal. All right, now I'm getting hungry. All right, let's talk about the speaker race here. We finally have a new speaker. I know you guys are extremely relieved. I remember how you guys were so panicked last week about not having a speaker. How is Congress going to handle the business of the American people without a speaker? It was a really stressful time for all of us here on the panel. I'm sure you guys in the audience were freaking out as well. Without Congress being,
I didn't sleep very well last week. I'll tell you.
I know. It's like how are we going to move forward without Congress spending our money? I mean, this is scary times. So we ended up with Johnson, Mike Johnson of Louisiana, first ever speaker from Louisiana, which is kind of cool. He seems like an upgrade on the surface. He's been very aligned with Donald Trump and the America First movement. He helped lead the defense on both of the impeachments. He's voted against funding for Ukraine every time except for the very first initial vote. I think he kind of jumped on the political bandwagon there, but for the most part he's been pretty solid as far as voting record, as far as rhetoric goes, aside from a few things here and there. How do you guys feel about the way this ended up?
I actually didn't know too much about this guy until all of a sudden he started throwing his his name started getting floated out there. Looked into his voting record. He does have a lot of good things to brag about. Ultimately, on the surface, as far as we always talk about whether or not something is at the very bare minimum good television, and I like the fact that he has gotten a lot of people upset. I like the vitriol from the media. That's always a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first thing he says is we gotta cobble together some legislation to help Israel. So I was like, all right, well, not a strongest start right there.
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna cobble together some resources to lock down our border. That would be great. But who knows? Who knows? Well, let's see.
Why is it so hard to just put America first just once from these people? It's like you're elected by Americans to represent Americans. You out of nowhere get into this position. I mean, no one had this guy top of mind as far as being a contender for a speaker. All of a sudden you're third in line to be president. You're the head of the Republican caucus or conference, and you go to make your acceptance speech, and you literally say the first thing that I'm going to do is support Israel, and then I'm going to do something about the border. I think it was after that. It was like, why just pay me the lip service? Just one of these people, just for once, be like, America first. We do these things for America, and then if there's time, our quote unquote allies. But it's just
like Israel's the toll that needs to be paid to be able to do what we need to do at home, which is the only reason why any governing body exists, is to serve any kind of domestic interest first and foremost. But of course, for generations we've been taught that to put ourselves first is to be isolationists. And
I don't know. The United States was doing pretty good when we were isolationists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Wars were regional and tended to be worked out among the people involved. Things like that were that's a norm I'd like to get to. There's no smoothing out the tumultuous and volatile nature of humankind. There's always going to be headbutting and unfortunately violence from time to time. But the whole thing here, just like everything else, just like the Constitution itself, it allows any kind of a state to become an incubator for ideas that can be tested and implemented locally, so that if it's a good idea, good for you. If it's a bad idea, at least you sink and not the rest of the country sinks. So it's about isolation, and isolationism is a way of making decentralization a dirty term. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens. You could be the most proficient originalist voter in the House in any legislative body in the country, and you can get thrown into the position of the speakership, and everything changes just because the pressure is completely different. So, I mean, I guess the resume makes you say, well, hey, let's cross our fingers and say a prayer, but you just don't know until they start going.
Yeah, I'm reserving judgment. I too was a little dismayed that was the very first thing that he said that they were going to do. But, I'm thinking about it from a kind of strategic mindset. If you look back at Mike Johnson's record, obviously it's pretty good. I mean, he's fairly well aligned with President Trump and America First. He was the one who suggested that Nancy Pelosi be charged with a felony for ripping up Donald Trump's speech at the State of the Union. He was like the only one speaking up about that. And he was also on nobody's radar. Like, they went through 3 potential candidates that nobody could come to an agreement on. And then he's, very quietly there in the back of the room saying, well, I guess if nobody else can do it, I'll do it. I feel like he's a bit of a sleeper agent. And they were able to kind of slip him past the goalie. It's not that he was necessarily the most appealing candidate. It's just that everybody was tired and beaten down after a couple of weeks of unsuccessful movement. And if the first thing he does is vote for funding for Israel, well, then the next thing he does, he's going to have the support of people who perhaps may not have backed him in the first place. And so I'm really looking to see what the next business to bring up he is.
So it's interesting you say that about how he kind of slipped in. There is this clip from Matt Gaetz in the War Room, and he kind of spilled the what do they say? Spilled the tea. Is that am I using that correctly on what happened behind the closed doors here with the Republican conference? Take a listen to this, guys.
So as Emmer is withdrawing, Mark Molinaro, a moderate New York freshman Republican, stands up at the microphone and says, well, instead of restarting this process and having a candidate forum and sending everybody home for a good cry, let's just take a non-binding poll on where people would be on the person who came in second to Tom Emmer, and that was Mike Johnson. And Elise Stefanik said, well, that's against the rules. The rules don't contemplate it. We can't do that. And brilliantly, Mark Molinaro says, then I move for unanimous consent that the rules be waived and we take a poll on whether or not Mike Johnson could be our speaker nominee. And guess who objects to that unanimous consent request? Kevin McCarthy.
Who was that?
Kevin McCarthy stands up and erupts and says, I object to doing a roll call on Mike Johnson. And Mike Johnson was exasperated. All the times Johnson had voted for McCarthy, had carried his water, maybe even voted for some bills he didn't like because he was working toward the Republican conference's stated objectives under McCarthy. And here was the thing. It showed everyone that it was actually McCarthy who was working to knife Scalise. It was actually McCarthy who was working to knife Jim Jordan. It was McCarthy working to knife everyone, and he hadn't yet figured out a way to knife Mike Johnson. And so he was worried that there was going to be this great unifying moment, and he scuttled the unifying moment. So because of McCarthy's objection, we had to have this 3-hour delay. And, candidates announce again, have another forum. And guess what happens during that delay, Steve? Patrick McHenry runs to the House floor, opens it up out of recess, and then adjourns till noon today. Now, why did he do that? Because they were setting up a play to block Mike Johnson with write-in votes in the intra-conference process for Kevin McCarthy. They were promising people hearings on their favorite legislation, passage of bills. I heard people promised, oh, maybe you'll get a chairmanship. And the play was for McCarthy to return as speaker and then Jim Jordan to be the deputy speaker in some sort of like Dwight Schrute assistant to the regional manager posture. And that would have been debasing to Jordan, someone I like a great deal, and it would have been empowering to McCarthy. So Garrett Graves and all these people are working to try to effectuate this return of McCarthy. And they're telling us they're going to be 100 votes for McCarthy on the write-in. You know how many there were? 33 on the first write-in. So they flame out terribly. Mike Johnson's gaining momentum. Ultimately, McCarthy gets 43 to vote for him on a secret ballot, but Mike Johnson gets a majority. And then he says, you know what I want? I want a roll call vote, so that those 43 would have to announce themselves as being for a candidate who wasn't even running instead of a unifying force like Mike Johnson. And when we called for the roll call, do you know how many people voted for Kevin McCarthy? 0.
Pussies, you pussies. Oh, you know that reminded me of right when he revealed, the objection from McCarthy. It reminded me of The Godfather. I'm thinking about The Godfather these a lot these days, aside from just loving the movie, but I'm reading the book. And it reminds me of the little summit that was held after Sonny Corleone was gunned down, and now Don Vito is getting all the heads of the 5 families and everybody else outside of New York to come here to negotiate a peace. And it wasn't just a peace; it was very low key, trying to figure out who the big threat at the table was. And it was only afterwards in the limo ride back to the compound that he realizes that it was Barzini all along. The first thing I thought about when I heard him expose McCarthy right there was McCarthy being Barzini. It's just incredible. It's just incredible.
That's great.
All those pussies. All those pussies, man.
That to me was really, really interesting. And it does show that it wasn't Matt Gaetz, being the agent of chaos, causing disarray. Yeah, I mean, he definitely did his job to remove McCarthy and create some drama, but the vote could have been settled with Jim Jordan or Steve Scalise, it sounds like, pretty quickly thereafter, without Kevin McCarthy kind of sneakily working behind the scenes to make sure neither of those guys got in. And he just couldn't stop Mike Johnson, or he couldn't move his pieces around the chessboard quick enough to block Mike Johnson. And I mean, I would have preferred Jim Jordan, maybe just because I'm more familiar with Jim Jordan, and I feel like he's got a pretty strong reputation. But I mean, this is you can't do a lot worse than Kevin McCarthy. So I'm interested to see how this goes. And on the face of it, I mean, you have someone who's publicly, claimed the 2020 election was not on the up and up, a Donald Trump ally, and someone who has a very conservative voting record in that position. I mean, he's got to be the most conservative, grassroots oriented guy, at least on paper, that we've ever seen make it that far in government. That's not Donald Trump, at least in recent history. Well, I feel like it's a huge step in the right direction.
I agree.
It's definitely a far more interesting roll of the dice, one way or another.
Yeah. The only other thing I want to bring up on this particular topic is people are kind of losing their minds over this clip from right after George Floyd died from what seems like a fentanyl overdose now. But I saw a lot of people saying this disqualifies him. I'm curious to see how much this affects your view of him.
And I've thought often through all these ordeals over the last couple of weeks about the difference in the experiences between my 2 14-year-old sons, Michael being a Black American and Jack being white, Caucasian. They have different challenges. My son Jack has an easier path. He just does. The interesting thing about both of these kids, Michael and Jack, is they're both handsome, articulate, really talented kids, gifted by God to do lots of things. But the reality is, and no one can tell me otherwise, my son Michael had a harder time than my son Jack is going to have, simply because of the color of his skin. And that's a reality. It's an uncomfortable, painful one to acknowledge, but people have to recognize that's a fact.
What should we do about that?
I think that we really do need systematic change. I think we need transformative solutions. I think we're at a moment where we can begin to do more to form that more perfect union, as it says.
I watched more of this interview too. It doesn't get any better. Like he plays into a lot of like the CRT victimhood mentality stuff there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
let go back to that like moment in time though. Before anybody knew exactly what had happened, there was a lot of sympathy for George Floyd. There was a lot of people, especially in public service, who felt like they had their backs up against a wall. Plus, Mike Johnson's from Louisiana. I would say it's arguably objectively true that the experience for blacks in Louisiana is probably a little bit different than the experience for whites in Louisiana. And and if you're thinking in a general sense, black households, they're more likely to be single parent households raised by mothers with absent fathers, just based upon where they're living. Are they living in a more socioeconomically disadvantaged area? That's going to be a disadvantage. But of course, white children growing up in single parent households in a slum as well. I mean, they're going to have a tough time too. So it's not like a huge deal for me. And if he had said, Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd, get your knee off that man's neck, I'd feel a little bit weirder about it.
Right.
Well, I that's the first I've seen any of that. So I wonder what systemic change and transformative change looks like, because it's just horrendous. But to say that your white I had to imagine biological child and an adoptive child. Is that what's going on here?
Yes.
I had there are other ways in which you can, although I don't know too much more of the context, so it may not be this way. But to say that my adopted black son is going to have a little bit of a harder time, or black kids coming up are going to have a little harder time, I guess he disqualifies the idea that it is becoming harder and harder to be to be a black American, because of the way that the people who fawn over them and claim them as their own have made it, have the way that they have just completely destroyed education, the way that all of their wonderful social programs has really destroyed a majority of black families. That's happened to white families across the board too. It's just coming out of the 19th century into the 20th. Obviously, black Americans were still getting their bearings.
Yep.
And so they were already at a disadvantage there. So, but then again, he, for him to say my black child and my white child are going to have two different experiences. Well, that shouldn't be the case if you're the parent.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right there. But I would say that there is a disadvantage based solely upon the predominant culture that's out there in society for black Americans. I mean, that is a significant disadvantage, teaching people exactly how not to act, but that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's bad.
How to prepare your adopted child to go into a world that is, to understand really where the biggest challenges are.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in the game, it's not just about the system the reason why we have so much racial tension right now is because the system wants to be able to hide all of its greatest crimes behind animus on the civic level. They want people to have race-based problems with each other, because to look at what the real system promotes behind that is far more incriminating. So, I mean, you have to be able to take that away, because they have created situations where people are really, I don't know, they don't know any other way except bad behavior. That's all they've had. And and of course, when there's no accountability, you can't actually ever implement any kind of idea that's going to change it around, because then you're victim blaming,
Mm-hmm.
So, and you definitely can't blame single mothers.
That inbred culture of victimhood is also, I think, putting people at a disadvantage, because it's making them feel as if they can't rise above it, and they never can because of the color of their skin. But also, I can tell you the systemic change that we need is for black mothers to stop being marketed for abortions. I think that would be great. Also, the marketing of keeping the parental units together in the same household and not rewarding mothers who have, multiple children by multiple fathers, by inserting them into this welfare system and then allowing them to survive that way. And then also, not holding black fathers accountable, or any fathers accountable who choose to run off and not take care of their responsibilities. I think there is undoubtedly different experiences for people of any group. Okay. It's like not just that they're Black. I mean, a Black atheist's experience is going to be different from a Black Christian family's experience, because you're going to have certain institutional setups like in one situation versus another situation. Same thing for like a Chinese immigrant's family, or, you know, somebody who's Chinese, but they were born here in America. Everybody is going to have their own unique experiences, and it's going to create a different set of experiences for whoever you are. So it's hopefully he doesn't mean that like America needs to stop being so racist, but you know, I don't know. Did he say that actually in the full interview?
Not that I didn't watch the entire thing. I watched a chunk of it, and no, he didn't say anything that egregious.
Okay.
Where I come down on it is, Zach, you kind of already touched on it. He gave this interview at the very height of the George Floyd hysteria. You'd be hard pressed to find many politicians out there that didn't virtue signal on that, at least a tiny bit from either side. And I haven't seen anything else pop up that he has said since then. So it seems like it's one interview from years ago that hasn't led to him voting on a bill to put like CRT in schools or make any kind of real change. So the way I look at it is, it's an unfortunate soundbite for sure. It's not his best moment as a representative, but at the same time, I can forgive it if since then he's been solid and it hasn't affected the way he's voted or tried to write legislation on these issues. Then to me, the rhetoric is secondary to the actual actions that he takes. And as long as he doesn't continue promoting that regularly, and it, like I said, doesn't affect his voting on the floor, I can very quickly see that as, you know, an unfortunate moment in a very politically heightened environment around that area, and we just kind of move on. And it brings up the larger point of like our own version of cancel culture on our side of things, right? Like you could probably go and find something that most people have said that you don't agree with, and it's like, okay, this person wants to do a ton of good, or is in a position to potentially do a ton of good, and you want to bury them for a single interview they gave or a single comment they made 3 years ago. Is that productive? Is it worth it? At what level is rhetoric more important than the actual actions taken? You know, how should we prioritize that when we're evaluating these people, what they say versus what they do and whatnot? I think it leads to those deeper conversations that I think we need to look at and kind of rein ourselves in a bit, because the people are just absolutely like this. I think I saw Matt Walsh talking about how we need to get rid of this guy. This is disqualifying. We've been duped, like just burying him before he's even had the gavel for a day based on this, 10 minutes of speaking 3 years ago. It just seems like a complete overcorrection or an overreaction to that to me.
Well, yeah, I think at the very basis of the whole thing is that you can just disagree with somebody on individual issues. Now, as a just regular member of Congress, he's one man, one set of opinions, and one vote to back it up whenever something comes to the floor. There's a little bit more weight there when he's controlling the speakership, because then he's also controls what comes to the floor for a vote.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of that you want to know the mentality of his worldview and what kind of corrective measures he thinks might be necessary for fixing whatever problems this country may have. So there is that to consider. But again, like you said, on any one solitary issue, it shouldn't be a deal breaker for anybody to be like, throw this man away. And I'm not even talking about Congress. I'm just talking about being human beings living in this world. I mean, you know how many friends you're going to be left with if the only ones that you hang out with are those who are completely carbon copies of you, of you and everything you think. Hey, you wouldn't have very many friends, man. It's just so I don't know. Like I said, I don't know too much about him. That one thing is disconcerting a little bit. Zach puts pretty good context into what was going on at the time, but it also is something that is a look into his mentality and what he's willing to bargain with, something I don't necessarily like. But he's still just one guy, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Let's take care of a couple more sponsors, and I've got a few other things I want to get to before we close out the show for today. Our next sponsor is 1791 Gun Leather. Hey there, Badlanders. Are you in the market for a top-notch holster? For more than 2 centuries, the Second Amendment has protected our rights to keep and bear arms. At 1791 Gun Leather, our love for the Second Amendment goes hand in hand with our passion for the art of gun leather. 1791 Gun Leather holsters mold to just about any handgun, whether you prefer the inside waistband or outside waistband carry, or you're looking for the perfect everyday carry solution. What sets 1791 apart? They only use 100% certified American heavy native steer hide, and their team incorporates 4 generations of professional leather artisans into their mastery of both beautiful craftsmanship and functionality found in each holster. Their love for leather goods led them to create everyday carry items designated to help Americans always keep their essentials close by. Each 1791 Gun Leather product is a testament to their unwavering commitment to excellence. Visit us today at badlandsmedia.tv/1791. Use promo code Badlands for 10% off and experience the unmatched quality, craftsmanship, and dedication we put into every holster. Protect your freedom, protect your firearm, protect your loved ones. Do it all with 1791 Gun Leather. To top it all off, every holster comes with a lifetime warranty. Your satisfaction and peace of mind are their top priority. That's badlandsmedia.tv/1791. Promo code Badlands for 10% off. And yeah, for all of you 2A people out there, you know how important a good holster is. It can make a huge difference. Also, another new sponsor to this broadcast, but an old sponsor for 412 Productions. Very excited to see Earth Garden Botanicals joining the sponsor list here on Badlands Media. Are you looking for herbal solutions that are clean and natural? Look no further than Earth Garden Botanicals, your America First herbalist, nestled in the heart of Northwest Montana. Earth Garden Botanicals takes pride in crafting small handcrafted batches of herbal remedies using only the finest organic and wild crafted herbs from their local mountains. Their most popular products are sure to delight your senses and nourish your well-being. Sunshine and Pine Tea Blend is a harmonious combination of Western white pine and nutrient-rich herbs. It's the perfect afternoon pick-me-up that provides you with a boost of vitamin C, ceramine, and quercetin. Herbs of 1918 is a time-honored formula that was widely used during the 1918 pandemic. Its reputation endures, and it's here to support your well-being today. Fire Cider is a timeless tonic infused with apple cider vinegar and warming, wellness-supporting ingredients. Whether it's the colder months or any time of year, this sweet and zesty tonic boosts your natural, healthy lifestyle. Their elderberry tonic is a customer favorite. Elderberries are gathered. Hold on. I don't know why.
From the elder tree.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Their elderberry tonic is a customer favorite. Elderberries are gathered from the mountains near Glacier National Park. They are blended with honey, herbal tinctures, and fire cider to create a tonic that is praised for respiratory support. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/Earth Garden today and discover the power of nature's remedies, handcrafted in the heart of Montana. Use promo code Badlands to receive 10% off at checkout. That's badlandsmedia.tv/Earth Garden, promo code Badlands. And I can speak personally about all of the products at earthgardenbotanicals.com. They've been a sponsor of my channel, 412 Productions, for years now. I love their products. They are top notch. Everything's like grown locally, organically. It's as good as it gets. And Jolene, the herbalist and health coach that runs it, is a total genius when it comes to making this stuff. She's one of a kind. So
what do? You take a shot of it a day?
So the fire cider I use whenever, like, my sinuses, if I'm having trouble breathing, especially during like the allergy seasons and I'm stuffed up, sometimes I just sniff it and it's just like I can breathe again. Capsaicin
opens it up.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then the elderberry tonic is good like when you have a cold coming on. She makes CBD oils that are really awesome too, like Delta 8 edibles for like good night's sleep. She makes a lot of great stuff over there. So again, it's earthgardenbotanicals.com. Or Badlands Media TV /Earth Garden And then the promo code is Badlands to get your 10% off. So go check it out, guys. They are a wonderful company. All of our sponsors today are wonderful companies. All right. So I usually have some kind of poll or survey I like to share with you guys each week. Last week I didn't have one, but this week I have this. This is from Axios. It says America's trust in media plummets to a historic low. And you can see it's down at 32%. I'll read a tiny bit of this here. It says America's trust in media has fallen to a historic low, according to new polling from Gallup. Why it matters, trust in media has previously dropped to 32% in 2016 before rebounding slightly. Those gains have essentially been wiped out, according to the poll. Only 32% of the population reports having a great deal or a fair amount of confidence that the media reports the news in a full, fair, and accurate way. The only other time in recent history that trust has fallen to 32% was in 2016. In some cases, the sentiment is worse today. A record high number of Americans, 39%, say they don't trust the media at all. That number has steadily increased since 2018. And here is, you can see it by party here, the trust in the media. And it is obviously Democrats, because everything's kind of honed in to fill their confirmation bias is still at 58%. But you look at independents down at 29% and Republicans at 11%. It says much of the sentiment dip is driven by Democrats and independents whose collective trust in media has plummeted 18 and 13 percentage points respectively from their 2018 peaks. Younger Democrats in particular tend to be much less trusting of the media, according to Gallup data. Republican trust in media is near an all-time low. And then there's another article about how a lot of Americans are now only trusting podcasts in the podcast format for their news. I think is really a sign of a changing of the guard, a changing of the way we have conversations, the changing of the flow of information, the role of the audience and all of it too. I think, I've made this point many times, having live chats involved while you're talking about these kind of items is a complete paradigm shift. No longer is the audience passive and just, isolated with their own thoughts.
It's a double-edged sword. There's a lot of retards in chat rooms, though.
Yeah.
It's a double. You have to take your. No, I'm saying it's.
But not you guys.
Obviously, you guys are fine. I'm just saying, I've been in those chat rooms as a participant, and I am at times a retard. So go ahead.
Even all right, let's say like CNN on TV, if there was a live chat on this screen that people could see and participate in, and even 15% of the viewers were there, looking into things and trying to counter the narrative.
I would just love it so much. We would just be like all of us chatting fake news CNN, fake news CNN, fake news CNN. That's all you'd see.
You would essentially have thousands, if not tens of thousands of fact checkers keeping them honest at every turn. They wouldn't be able to do what they do with the live chat. That's why they turn them off. Like if you go to any of their YouTube channels, or they never have it turned on because.
Well, you said it. The first thing you said there, Adel, was, obviously there are a lot of journalists who are actually worth their weight in salt that go out and they actually look for prime sources. They go on location, they hit the telephones, they actually create things, create stories by doing really investigative journalist, working as an investigative journalist. And they go there and they realize people like Barry Weiss and others, we've seen those kind of like Goodbye New York Times, even if you're center left and all that stuff, we've seen people say the way that this is being managed from within the newsrooms is untenable, and it is dangerous, regardless of how you see the world, how you vote, et cetera, et cetera. So whereas you do have a lot of real journalist types that have gone out there, created their own podcasts, have marketed it well, have garnered a legitimate audience, and are relaying news based on sources they've acquired over the course of their career so far. The other big game changer, like you just said there, Adel, is conversation. For as much as these people always say, we need to start a conversation about so-and-so, they're not actually talking about a conversation. They're talking about sitting you down and berating you with their narratives on race and gender and all that crap until you just fall asleep from a coma. I mean, just go slip into a coma and then that's it. That's what they want to talk about. That when they say conversation. I think where podcasts have really been the game changer is that there's an aspect of the news, headlines, what have you heard? But then it's really so much more about listening to how other people think. Listening to a person rattle off their thoughts on a certain subject does not automatically make me think that, oh yeah, if they have a point, they have a point because I'm following their logical progressions. Okay. And if I think that their logic is broken, then I mean, my opinion's not going to be swayed, but it's great to watch people think and to watch people take any kind of interaction from an audience and to actually engage in what could be a modified conversation between a host and an audience there. And that in itself is not only edifying based on what information is exchanged, but it's also a little bit more comforting to feel you're not so isolated. People have the same questions. You start becoming a little bit more comfortable in not knowing the answer. That's it. If we can at least get together and find better questions to ask, that's what I always feel is the biggest victory. Be comfortable in not knowing the answer, because in the end of all this stuff, so much of it is so buried underneath obfuscation and unthinkable levels of manipulation that we may not know all the pieces to the puzzle for the rest of our lives and many lives to come. So, I think that's the biggest reason why podcasts have taken over for people, especially when they find something that makes them feel comfortable.
Yeah. Zach, go ahead and give your 2 cents on this. And I know you got to get going. So if you want to also plug the show on the way out the door too.
Sure thing. So I'm going to be live here at 5 p.m. on my channel. You can search Red Pill 78 over on Rumble, the Foxhole, and I'm also going to be live on Getter, I think. Definitely. So, yeah, I think that this truly is just the natural progression of things. And the mainstream media has proven time and time again for decades that they can't be trusted. It's not about delivering information. It's about controlling a narrative. And people have gotten an opportunity to turn away because there is an alternative. The service that we provide in engaging with our audience and delivering quality information and commentary all at the same time, it is a phenomenon that was not really possible just a couple of years ago. The scene for podcasting and live streaming has exploded. I am extremely tickled to be part of it, and I'm glad to be here with you guys as well. So thank you as always, and I hope you have a lovely day. You can also go to my website, redpill78news.com. Peace.
Peace, brother.
Yeah, later, Zach. But, Frank, before I let you go, I got to ask: Are you a big UFC guy? Do you follow that closely?
I don't. Usually, when something notable happens, I get the highlight after the fact. I think I've only gotten together with friends to watch a night of UFC. One particular card over the other a few times. I'm not. I don't know. It's just something that no.
No, fair enough. I just wanted. I'm looking for someone that is a big UFC fan, also, kind of conservatively aligned, and I wanted to get their take on Dana White and the UFC partnering with Bud Light, having them as their main sponsor, or I guess they're one of their main sponsors. Yeah, it was an interesting turn of events there.
See, that's more concerning to me than Mike Johnson talking about the George Floyd thing back then and saying that's a little bit, because you're talking about you're talking about the kingpin of a major of a major brand. Mike Johnson being one little cog in the wheel of a major machine, so that's a little bit more concerning that I would look into that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I just want to know, does it make the UFC fans out there any less fans of the sport, or of the, will they stop watching? Make them more likely to drink Bud Light again? I'm just curious, to see.
I can't tell you yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell you what the effect is going to be.
Yeah.
How deep the impact is going to be, but there's definitely going to be people who they're going to not like it. There will definitely be some people who say, damn, man, are you not I thought you were paying attention to what the hell's going on in this country, and this is what the hell you're doing. They may stop watching. I do not think that Dana White going in on Bud Light as a major sponsor of the organization is going to bring people who left Bud Light out of principle back to Bud Light. So I think it's really just going to be about whoever didn't care about it to begin with. They're either going to keep buying it, or they're not big beer drinkers, or they just don't like Bud Light as a taste. But that's a very curious move for someone like Dana White to jump into bed with them. Out of all the beer companies, out of all the adult beverages in the country, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I'm sure it wouldn't have been hard for him to get pretty much anybody else, So the price must have been pretty phenomenally high for him to go and align himself with a brand that he knows is struggling right now for political reasons. And he gave a little interview about it. He basically said that, Bud Light, it does a lot of really good things, and he went about how many Americans have jobs because of them, and whatnot. And
yeah,
I mean,
you know how many people the federal government now employs, Adel?
Too many.
we shouldn't pare down on the size of the federal government too much, because over 2 million people are employed by them. Think about the jobs that have been created. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I didn't necessarily agree with the logic either. I just imagine the enormous check that they must have written to sway him, and he's rationalizing. But anyway, yeah, I was just curious to pick your brain on that for a second. Frank, let everyone know who you got coming on here on Quite Frankly the next couple days.
Well, tonight at 7:00, which can be watched on Rumble or on pill.net, quitefrankly.tv. That's pretty much the same thing. I'd say go to quitefrankly.tv or Rumble for those of you who are watching there, and watch tonight at 7:00 as I have Greg Carlwood come back to the show. I think the first time this year. He's the host of the Higher Side Chats, and we're going to be talking a little bit about I don't know, it'll be conspiracy theory based. Greg likes jumping into the weeds, so I think we'll be talking a little MK Ultra, a little aliens, because Goldie Hawn. Did you see what Goldie Hawn said? That she had such a close encounter with an alien that she was touched by one, and it was like getting touched by the finger of God. That's what Goldie Hawn said. So I would take that and spin it into some other spooky stuff, and who the hell knows? It's Greg Carlwood, so it'll be a good night. As far as tomorrow night goes, Friday, it'll be relaxing. We're gonna be reading some of your small town creepy stories. I have a nice little interview planned with a 100-year-old member of the audience. We're going to spend a couple of minutes talking to them about life and the future and the past. So I hope you all join us. Quitefrankly.tv. And Adel, again, thank you for allowing me to ride in the back seat.
Hey, man, thank you for coming along. I appreciate it.
All right. Good night.
All right, there you go. It's Frankie Val of the Quite Frankly Show. You can find everything Quite Frankly, like he said, at quitefrankly.tv. He goes live at 7 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. It's an absolutely fantastic show. If you guys haven't caught it yet, you really need to go check it out. Zach Payne, redpill78news.com, although I don't think he needs too much promoting here on Badlands. You guys know all about Zach Payne, but he goes live. He's live right now. He goes live right after this show at 5 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday for his news. And then he has the Friday and Saturday night shows as well, where he always has amazing guests. Both of these guys are just independent media legends, and very, very grateful to share an hour of conversation with them each week, and very grateful to be syndicated and hosted by the wonderful people over on Badlands Media. Thank you to all of you guys watching over on Badlands Media. If you'd like to follow me beyond just taking it back, I do a show Monday through Friday on 412 Productions is the name of my channel. So just type in the number 412 Productions on Rumble, Pill.net, or DLive, Odyssey, Clout Hub, and on Twitter. at 412anon87, on Truth Social at 412. So I hope to earn your follow wherever it is you guys like to hang out. And yeah, thank you guys again. Also, I just want to say, if you haven't seen, or those of you that are fans or friends of Ben Garrison, he's a great friend of mine and of the channel. He comes on quite often to talk about his latest cartoons, and he does. I mean, you guys know Ben Garrison's a total legend. Is a total legend. Let me see here. So he just got his Twitter account back after 3 years of it being suspended. So it's Grr Graphics. Here, I'll bring it up right here. Grr Graphics, GRRR Graphics. If you guys want to follow the original Ben Garrison account, like I said, he's been one of the most censored people out there, and just finally got his account restored on Twitter, which is huge for him and his wife Tina. So go and show him some love. Give him a follow if you don't already, and check out the amazing cartoons. He does really, really awesome work with the different political cartoons over on grgraphics.com. So I wanted to give him a shout out as well and let you guys know he was back and on Twitter again, or at least the original. They created a backup account that was starting to grow, but they got their big account with over 170,000 followers back on Twitter. That is pretty much going to do it. Just got to say some thank yous to those of you who donated to today's broadcast. Due Diligence, thank you for the cookies as a Tucking It Back cookie. Appreciate you, man. R. Harold, Brew Bark, thank you for the cookie. Same to you, boys. Blong, Filter Dog 1 hooked us up with some shades. Thank you, Filter Dog. Patriot Game says, the government showing how muddy they are. Absolutely. Thank you for the cookie. Sean Joe, you as well. Brewbark with shade says, true the vote versus Stacey Abrams. Fair fight in Georgia federal court today, 10/26. Ooh, we'll have to see how that plays out. The true the vote stuff that they've been after for a long time now could be paradigm shattering if they're ever able to actually finish their what do you call it? Inspection of those ballots that don't have any chain of custody. I think there's like 150,000 of them they've been trying to get their hands on and investigate. So if they ever get there and can release the results of it, that would be that could be paradigm shattering. Filter Dog 1 says families and communities are a big part of stability. Yes, they are. Filter Dog, thank you for the can. Absolutely. Boys Blanc, thank you for the cookie. And Due Diligence says, best thing to do is exactly what Morgan Freeman said. Stop talking about it for color differences. Yeah. I mean, if that's the prism you view every issue through, then everything's always going to seem racist. It's always going to be divisive. I couldn't agree more. The quickest way to end racism is to stop talking about it. 100%. It's very wise words from Morgan Freeman. I don't agree with him on much, but I do agree with him on that. Guys, thank you again so much for hanging out with us today. And just want to say, don't forget to hit the thumbs up on the video wherever you're watching. Helps us get on the leaderboards on Rumble, especially those of you on Badlands Media. So thank you guys, everyone who takes a minute to do that. Wherever you're watching, though, please share the link. If you're on pilled.net, make sure you repost the show. Give us a red pill too while you're over there. And yeah, I guess it's time to say goodbye for Frankie Val of Quite Frankly Show, quitefrankly.tv, and Zach Payne of redpill78news.com. My name is Adel Nero. This has been Taking It Back, a 412 production syndicated by our wonderful friends over at Badlands Media. You guys have an awesome rest of your Thursday, and we'll see you guys all on the next one. Good night, everybody.